So, you have decided you want to play King or Usopp in D&D. But how, you ask? What is Usopp really is actually what you should be asking. Usopp is a long-nosed, lying coward with a good eye and some sick trick shots. But alas, you can't play him because, well, you can't play a god. Well, let's try to salvage this abysmal video and see how you can play Usopp in D&D. At last, not as a god. Firstly, let's look at Usopp's skill set. Now, what does Usopp really do? Well, he lies and deceits a lot. That is kind of one of his specialties from his background, so you have to make sure you get that. Because without deceit, how can you really become the ultimate sniper king? King. Now, what else does Usopp do? Well, he wields an array of interesting weapons, and his main two weapons are the slingshot and the big slingshot. Now, this we can actually accommodate in D&D, whilst slingshot is not really a neat weapon to have. We can simply reskin a longbow as the big slingshot and use a shortbow as the small slingshot. Now, all you'd have to do then is use the theater of your mind, think about it, and realize that it doesn't matter mechanically whether it's a slingshot or a longbow he does. You just use the same mechanics and use your noggin a bit and imagine, as the entire game is about, really. Now, by knowing the weapon, we can kind of fiddle our way into what class he should be, but what race should Usopp really be? Well, we know he wants to have a good deception score, so we do need charisma. We know that he has a good aim, so we need to have dexterity, otherwise we're simply not doing anything. But Usopp also tinkers quite a lot. And how do we accommodate that? Well, we need to get some intelligence, which will work perfectly with one of the builds that I'll be suggesting as well. Now, the last thing you might want to get is wisdom for perception. But you just always want perception anyway if you're playing D&D, so be a slave to the meta. Now, what options does this really leave us with? Well, we want a high dex. We can get that from being an elf. And with high elf or wood elf we can get, for example, or Eladrin or whatever, you can get an intelligence or a wisdom score as well. So that's kind of getting there, but you can also just pick half elf. And by picking half elf you get 2 in charisma, which you want for your deception, and 2 skills or 2 increases of your choice in your abilities. So just grab intelligence and probably you also grab dexterity, right? And you're done. So we can pretty safely say that Usopp is an elf of either half or other descent of elf. Now, elves are also famous for a particularly long facial feature, kind of like somebody else. Me. So if you want, maybe something went wrong and pointy ears didn't happen and pointy nose did. It's all up to you really, but you know. Now, for selecting a class, most people when they hear that you're going to be using a longbow as your primary weapon, they'll be thinking, well, the easy choice is just play a ranger. But it isn't. Playing a ranger is kind of eh. And let me tell you why. For starters, man, archetypes and for the ranger is just kind of not fitting. I mean, there is the Beastmaster, which is probably one of the more popular ones, but Usopp doesn't really have pets, or does he? Now, other options include Gloomstalker and Horizon Walker, which are both kind of not fitting for Usopp at all. And then finally we get to Hunter or Monster Slayer, which I guess is one of the 2 you'd have to go with if you want to play Usopp as a ranger. But personally I think there's a better pick. Fighter. Now you might think, okay, fighter, we put Zoro into fighter, we can't possibly have Usopp being a fighter as well, but fighter has a lot of nice options, because one of the archetypes of fighter, one of the newer archetypes of fighter, is Arcane Archer. Now, Arcane Archer requires us to have a high intelligence, but as I mentioned, we want to have a high intelligence anyways for tinkering. So that's perfect for our main man Usopp. What the Arcane Archer really does for us is it gives us some special shots. Now this allows the Arcane Archer to very well simulate all the different types of abilities that Usopp shows in the anime. All the special shots he's using, well, we can find things that are very similar to that. Now, for example, the Arcane Archer has Bursting Shot. The Arcane Archer also gets Grasping Shot, and you can see how these can very easily just be reskinned into what Usopp actually does in the anime, and thus the mechanics are there for you to play Usopp. You just have to do it. All you have to do is just pick Arcane Archer as your class, make sure you're playing half elf or a high elf or something like that so you can get your skills up there. Make sure you get Deception from your background, and you're pretty much good to go. Now the only thing you might feel like you're missing here is that tinkering thing. Now tinkering you can do, you can be an artificer. And actually being an artificer is an option now, and is actually a great multi-classing option for you if you're playing an Arcane Archer anyways. So if you want to add just that little bit of spice, you know, just go with the artificer. It will spice up your day. Otherwise, just play a freaking fighter and do Arcane Archery, because that's pretty cool and a little bit different than just being a hack and slash fighter. So I just want to re-emphasize, you have all the things available for you. You just have to reskin them in your mind and you're good to go. So go off and play Usopp in your next D&D game. And best of luck. Till next time.